I wanted to talk about this piece. I also wanted to see if I have any time to talk about this one. If I don't, I'll talk about it next time. But for this one, I think what the issue is that it's a very boring light source. You're building an entire scene and you have only one light source coming in. So what's happening is that you've opened the background around her. You've opened the scene. And in an open scene, even in your own room, look around you. Unless you've got, one light source, you got really thick windows, but in like your living room, or let's say if you go to a mall or go somewhere, there are lights coming in from every direction. And the environment of that room is bigger than you. So you are one of the smallest things in that environment. So a big room, an open space, you're always going to be the dark object, and the open space is going to be lighter than you until you start reaching those low sun levels in the daytime. But outside of that, there are exceptions here and there of manufactured light environments, like studio lights and stuff like that. But when it comes to this kind of setup, I think there's a bit of a confusion here. You're treating it like a closed room with one window open, but you've told us there's this environment behind her. That automatically means the background behind her is lighter and she's darker. She doesn't have to be darker than what she is right now, but she has to be dark in relative to the light. All right, so it looks like I'm gonna have to lasso it by hand. This is gonna be wonderful. All right, so I think you guys have confused the advice, try different light sources. You guys are trying to use, instead of an overhead light, you guys are trying to use a light from the side. I'm mapping out my illustration, so I'm going to use a light from the side. That's good, but in an open environment like this isn't an open environment. The background is right there. You have to remember that there are many light sources now, not just the main one. Maybe the dominant primary is coming in from the side, but not the others, not the rest. The rest are maybe resulting bounce light from the primary, the background being open, some kind of reflective surface is reflecting some light upward. There are so many more reasons to have an open background light environment, meaning brighter, than there are reasons not to. Okay. So that's why this illustration, though it's very well painted, is boring. It's boring because the light source is just coming in from one side. That's it. You don't even have bounce light on the arms. That's not how it works in an open environment. And the more open environments you study, the more you're going to notice this is happening. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is just lasso this to the best of my ability, but not kill myself doing it because there's a lot of detail. It would be really cool if people posted their PSDs, if I could finally ask for it. But after years of, accommodating to you guys and learning how to lasso as quickly as possible, I feel like it's unfair to start demanding PSDs. But oh, I wish I did it. I wish I set a precedent where you guys have to upload PSDs. But a JPEG was easy, I guess, easy enough for me to see what the image is and not have to worry. So let me preserve this lasso. Select him. And I'm going to try to do as little adjustment in the background as possible. So select inverse. So let's start with the background behind her head. So I'm going to use midtones on dodge tool. Remember, this is all I'm talking about today. I want you guys to really take a look at what it means to have a silhouetted character. It's not about the silhouette in its true form. We're not talking about making the character fully silhouetted. We're talking about the fact that even right now, if you went outside and took a picture, there is some silhouette happening with your character, your shape, against the background, against the sky. That's just how it works. I'm going to grab this environment color, I'm going to put it on darken, and I'm going to darken her. And then go back to the environment behind and raise the levels up a bit. Okay? So you're seeing something happening, right? You're seeing that this environment is starting to feel more like an actual open outside environment instead of the indoor environment it felt like before. Okay, so let me see what's happening here. All right, so I just want to clean this up. Maybe I'll switch brushes. But this isn't a silhouette like the classic one that I do, where, you know, I'm having a character look very dark in their environment. This is a silhouette that is standard for a character going outside. Do you guys understand what I mean? So I'll darken the lower half of the canvas. And I'll raise the brightness of the upper half of the canvas because that's where the light is coming in. And then I'll do more on one corner than another corner. And I'm just continuously sorry, 1 minute. Yeah, I'm just continuously finding this balance here. All right, and so I'm just raising that background value. Oops, there's a lot of noise in this. And darkening her character. Just finding a balance between the two. And that's really all that it took to open that background scene. But the way you did it before, it's as if the light is only coming in from one side. So select inverse. Now I'm going to try to illuminate her character. So anywhere where we do have direct light, I'm going to erase away at the shadow that I added, just to continue that light source you were going for. Anywhere that's facing that light direction, it's all getting deleted where I added shadow. Okay, but I am going to delete where there might be bounce light. I'll have to bring in my own in a second. And deleting a little bit around the hair. And you added, I think you added some kind of subsurface light behind her head. And just right here, just continuing that same general idea, letting the tongue kind of get a little bit of subsurface. A little bit of subsurface on the bottom of her dress. A little bit of light coming in from the side on her thighs. Okay, and then I'm just gonna kind of try to raise the vibe. I think I use pure black. All right, and then I'm gonna delete away her eyes, make sure they still glow. And I'm not sure what these bright white points are, but they must be related to that spittle, I guess. This character's got a spit. She's a spit elemental. So I'm just making sure I keep it looking like spit. So gross. This is a gross design, but that's just because I'm a girl and I'm like, ew. Like, that's all. It's a cool design, but it's gross, but that's why it works, and I guess that's the job well done. Okay. So I'm darkening her character against that background. So when she's bright against the bright background, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't work. So we want to keep trying to darken her character. So I'm dropping her levels a little bit as well. And then selecting inverse. And just continuing to promote that the fact that the background is brighter. I can keep it darker on one side of the canvas than the other, simply because the light is generally coming from one direction. But the silhouette is still necessary. And so that comes from keeping the background from being too black or having black values. And just brightening the space directly behind her. And I'm not sure if this was me lassoing or if this was your work, but this part of the chest or torso is just too bright. It's kind of killing her silhouette. Then I'm going to get pure black on probably multiply. And I'm going to try to drop her values radially on the dark side of her body. So anywhere where we actually have the character looking away from the light source. And because you set it off, I'm going to try to add that same hair glow, that subsurface color, a little bit more. And this is kind of like the accent color. So like when you're decorating your house and you pick a color for the curtains and the pillows, this is like what you're doing. You're finding an accent color, but you still have your base color. And that is the color that I guess you would say is the color of your walls and your furniture, etc. So that would be the grays and the blues. But it's very hard to tell what your complementary color is, because you've got a lot of pink and you've got a lot of green. You have to pick one to be dominant. And when you're talking about like an eerie, dark themed, I think this is a mimic, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what she is. Then I think you would have more of a dark theme, and green and dark themes go really well together. So I think you should balance out your colors. You should bring in a dominant color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow some of that green to work as an accent here and bring in some of it on her dress. And again, the accent, I think what you intended is the gold. But everything seems to be equally desaturated. So the gold is desaturated, the green is desaturated, the background is desaturated. The only thing really glowing is the green. And like that's about it. And it's causing a bit of a confusion when it comes to the environment. So I'm going to make some more consistency happen in these colors, in these shades, and then we can talk about maybe I should use this color. And then we can talk about like the rest of the environment. So select inverse. And I'm just illuminating behind everything I want to accent. So right behind her waist, I'm adding more brightness. Right behind her legs, I'm adding a little bit more brightness. Right behind her head, I'm adding like a slight halo. This is all to show that she is surrounded by this environment. So right behind her hand, do you see those extra select areas I added? You can do that. I'm also going to get rid of these lines of spit you have everywhere because they're not working with your canvas. They're not following any line of sight. You have this heart that she made out of her spit. You could have put it somewhere here because this part of the canvas is empty, and you wanted to fill it up. You wanted to fill that part of the canvas up. But what happened is that you added really random stuff. So when we get rid of this stuff, we can see that it was kind of interrupting. A straight line is like getting a knife and slashing your illustration with it. A straight line is so dangerous for, gosh, you added a lot of noise. Very, very dangerous to your canvas. Okay, because it's not really doing what you think it's doing. It's actually drawing the attention of the viewer. The viewer wants to see straight lines because that's the eye. The human eye is drawn to such directional shapes and obvious detail. A straight line is obvious detail. Write that back. So you should be very careful with where you add these straight lines. Make them like this, like more of a hint than anything else. So now we're seeing this empty spot in the background. And what you can do is select, son of a Photoshop. Select, oh, you son of a, okay. Select the background and try to fill up more environment here. Try to break up and create more opportunities for that environment to be bright. More forest elements, like build the scene up a little bit more. Like create more of a continuity in the hills and all these little areas that you have. But, you know, apart from that, there's a lot that I can change, but it would change the illustration a great deal. But I think this has done something. The head of the character is all the way up at the edge of the canvas, which is a very big mistake. You never really want to do that. So what I'm going to do is lower her and shift her over. And try to create a setup in the canvas that doesn't feel, well, this is ideally where it should be, that doesn't feel so on the right side. But I won't do that simply because it's just a lot of editing. So what I'll do is just crop it, and that'll bring the attention back here. You can lower her, which is very, very highly recommended because that placement of her character at the top of the canvas is just not, it doesn't feel right. It feels like we're not able to see the character. You may miss the way that was usually was cropped before. You may miss all that extra detail, but I really think that you need to do that because it's just too much of the of what's interesting hidden off at the top where we can't even access it. We want to be able to see her horns. We want to see, you know, the work you put into this. Don't rely too much on noise to give you detail. It's just a trick. It's not painting for you. Okay? You used way too much noise, and all it really did is just confuse the illustration a bit too much. So what I'm going to do now is just delete at the top, just so we can get rid of that seam. And I'm going to try to finish the horn shape. That's good enough. And just put it on darken. They're not the best horns I could have picked. Seriously? Okay. And then I'm just going to put that up there. So the next thing I want to do, and I wanted to save this to the end because I didn't want to lose my lasso, is just her head didn't feel like, it felt like it was missing some parts to it. So I'm adding a little bit at the top. So this is a very small fix for a painting with a lot of other combined issues. Like, where really are you going with the painting? What's the point of the painting? It's just splash art? If that's the case, you had to have some of that, some of the, sorry, 1 minute. I just got to make sure I select the new horns. Some of that silhouette. Okay, and I'm going to select the hair as well. Oops. I select the hair as well. Save that new. And I'm going to brighten the background just a touch more. But I'm also going to add like a shadow hovering at the bottom of the screen. If you feel like the background is now too bright, that's fine. You can darken half of the lower part of the screen on top of all of the other layers. So you can have a layer that's darker at the bottom. And because you brought in so much light, you want to add a little bit more in the top corner. But the background is now generally brighter than her character. And then now we can add in that bounce light on her arm. But yeah, the colors really need to be revisited. They feel very dull, and I think that also is part of the reason why it felt boring. So I'm gonna get this green and I'm going to just color wash it over like the majority of the painting of her character, just to bring in some new color, right? Just to give her some color. And it really added something interesting. And I'm going to get that gold and go over all of the gold filigree you have here. And I'm going to try to use a green yellow, which is a yellow that just feels like some of the green is coming through, just to keep things in that same like setup. I'm going to use that same green to color her bounce light on her arm because that's where it's coming from, off the green. And now you can see how the background really is not helping. You can desaturate the edge of her dress as it reaches the edge of the canvas. You can desaturate things on the edge of the canvas. That's part of the way we frame. And then select inverse. And I'm going to use a bluish version of that green because environment always has blue in it, just a little bit. And I'm going to use it to color the background in just a touch. Just to give it something extra, you know, something spooky maybe. But she is purple, and so I'm going to try to use some of those tones just to wrap things up. But I think she needs a lot more stuff happening around her, a lot more twigs, a lot more trees, a lot more of whatever's behind her. You need to have a lot more than just one big root. That's very boring. And then one little twig coming out of it. You know, why is this forest so bald? You need a lot more, many, many roots. So what I'm going to try to do is create these like root shapes and try to make it seem like they're all, you know, wound around. But there's a lot of them and they're going in and out of the painting. Maybe that is something you tried to do. I think this is, now that I see it, I think this is water. So I'm just going to pick random value here, darken it, put it on darken, select the lasso. Oops. I don't know why it's doing this to me. Select the lasso, right? Yeah. And then select inverse and delete wherever those roots come up. Probably have to do that again in a second. Blur, Gaussian blur the roots away. Mostly the one in the background needs to be blurred. And then just reduce its opacity. But there's just more of those roots happening. I don't know why the root looks so crappy. Sorry about that. And the ones in the foreground can be a bit darker. You can do a much better job than I did. I'm just trying to show there's more of these, you know, root shapes. Just make it look more sinewy and more full. To complete that feeling of a haunted forest. You just did not have enough environment. Maybe show a couple of, you know, predatory carnivorous plants. Show some insect life maybe. And just reducing the opacity a touch. Just feels a little bit empty without all the extra roots. Maybe I don't know, I kind of want to delete that one now, actually. Just reduce its opacity a touch more. Okay, and as for like the spittle, the heart-shaped spittle, you could have done a little bit more of like this type of motion. So the spit's like, bleh, you know, like 1 second, let me. Like it's more of a, like that. And then as for these pointing hands, they remind me a lot of the Michelangelo paintings like Madonna on the Rocks and stuff like that. Like they feel very divine, holy. Usually the saints are drawn with their hand showing one finger to represent, you know, unity with God and the fact that there's one God, etc. So these hands, you could have done something so much more with them because they're all we have of the character that can characterize a little bit more. So you could have done a gesture that is a little bit more playful. You know, maybe her hand is a little bit more like that. And the other hand is more like girly, like the wrist is up. Another pinky is up. And she's kind of like just chilling. So you're pointing at something, and we want to know what you're pointing at. And they don't seem like a sorceress's hands. They feel very, I'm not sure how to describe it. They feel very random. I'm going to get that spooky green again, and I'm going to on color dodge before I fix up the hands. I'm just gonna let some of it just like float in from the bottom of the canvas, just to show that there's some magic around her in her environment. Random just colors coming in. So I added a black layer underneath her and a layer of glowing magic. So what this painting needed wasn't more detail. It needed more of this type of stuff. So fixing the hands is going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to try to. Oh, brother. Okay, so I'll just select the whole thing and paste it in and then duplicate it again. I just want to show you the impact of the hand and like how it can change how we see her. Maybe you intended for her to be writing something with the with her other hand. I'm not sure, but let me do a couple of the fingers first. So it's going to look really weird. Bear with me. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of this thumb. Okay, and then I'm going to add a couple more spooky witch fingers. It's going to look really weird, I'm telling you. And I'm genuinely curious to see if I can pull this off. Okay, so her hands are kind of like open, and the rest I'm just gonna draw in. Oops. And I'm gonna try to keep the finger you drew here since it's not really doing anything. And this hand is kind of just she's just like, you know, got this spooky ass hand. And maybe this pinky can go. And I can come back this way. Oop. And I'm just gonna delete the space around. Okay, I'm just gonna delete this area here. Instead of just that holy finger, you know. And then maybe one of the fingers is just, the index finger is like, bear with me, Istebrak, struggling with hands. And then the other hand, so 3 fingers, and she's just like, oh, okay. So she'll separate these, make them go like that, and then take the whole hand and make it, oops, make it go like that. Oh, there's the rest of the hand. Oh, I merged it down. Oh, that's okay. Bear with me. And take the whole hand and kind of make it kind of just like bend back playfully. And then I'll bend this back forward. Oh, brother. Okay, and then I'm just gonna delete Okay. And then that last pinky, I can just now add it in. I just want to have that kind of like dainty claw hand. Whatever. Whatever. And then the other hand, I'm just gonna clean this up. And I don't know what she could be doing with this hand, you know, what part of her spell she's incorporating into this gesture, but I just did a random kind of gesture. Maybe she's saying hello. And then for this hand, what I want to do is I'm just going to sketch it in. And she's kind of, oh right, she was supposed to be doing an upward wrist thing. Oh, actually, I'll leave it. I'll leave it the way it is. I'll just get rid of that. That holy finger. Just give her a girly kind of nail thing. Okay. So there's what the hand was before, which is so much better than what I drew. But I just want you to see what I mean with the with the writing, right? Maybe if you had let some of the spit kind of travel from her finger. Do you see what I'm saying? And then like she's writing with it, but you didn't really do that. It just looks like one of those holy saints with the long beards looking very depressed, and they're just like, you know, their finger is up in one hand and their robes are, and then their book is on the other hand. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's what it's reminding me of, and you could do so many different things with the, it looks like he's flipping us off, but you could do something else where she looks like she's weaving a web, but I really want you to do something else with the hands. I'm gonna Control Z with what I changed, because I don't feel like working on detailing it and getting it to your level. But even that, you know, she's just like casting the spell. Even that gesture is okay, I guess. But yeah, it's just a touch too direct with the singular finger. Okay. And then I want to add in some kind of bounce light. So this is where I just kind of merge everything. So merge layers. There should be like some kind of extra ambient, not bounce light, sorry, ambient light coming in from some direction to interrupt all of this. It could be more green if you wanted to. What I would do is get like a kind of like a magical mean looking pink like this one, and use it along the side of her arm, and then just use it on this hand, use it on some of the hair, just so that pink can come back and make an appearance again somewhere else in the painting. Okay. And oh, one more thing. The space behind her doesn't have to be bright around her head. So if you wanted to, you could darken the space behind her head as dark as you had it before. It's just that we have now some areas. So let me show you. Maybe multiply will work. Maybe let me add a bit of color first. So you could make it more of a nighttime-ish type of scene behind her, but only behind her head. We still need a silhouette in some areas. If you do the whole thing, this looks pretty cool, but now it's a dark environment, and we have to rely heavily on the glowing parts. We have to bring in much more glowing elements, Like this is pretty much, these two things are making it read, these two extra glowy bits. If we were to duplicate that glowy bit and duplicate that glowy bit, the nighttime works. But I'm trying to stick to what you originally designed, which was like a outdoor scene around daytime. So you could darken the space behind her if you wanted to. This is how it is right now. This is with a little bit of darkening. As long as you keep some areas bright enough for us to read the silhouette, which is what this is. This is about the pinup. So it's about balancing. I think I mislassoed some areas here because we're like missing some stuff. And then I'll show you the before and after. So this was really a discussion about involving your character in the environments. Oh no, that wasn't what you were intending at all. Involving your character in the environments that they're in. They seem to be disconnected when you guys, do these illustrations. Your characters don't seem to have any actual study behind their position in the environment. So like you guys just add whatever background once your character is done, as if your character will carry the image. And that's never true. You always need a light environment that'll read, that'll work. Or else it's just not going to succeed. One more thing I want to add is the shadow at the top of the canvas, which is very important to add, especially if there's nothing happening. Just add that shadow. Definitely not that much. So I'm just lowering my opacity and I'm just adding a framing shadow at the top half of the canvas. And I'm just going to delete it wherever it went over her head. And this will reinforce the fact that most of the light is coming in from the side. And I'll darken the other side as well. I kind of like to frame her, but this side is generally brighter anyway. Okay, and flatten the image, sponge tool, saturate, and we can just saturate the tongue a little bit because it's hard to see the tongue. It's hard to tell that it's there. But yeah, a couple more of those predatory plants, that look very similar to her, since that's technically what she is, like a Venus flytrap. Some more flowers like that in the distance would go a long way, just to show that she's part of a flower field of volatile plants, something like that. Filling the scene up. Some more twigs, some leaves, some insects, some more ominous green glow. Maybe some of that green can linger like toxins or some kind of toxin cloud. Color. Just toxins kind of floating around in the environment, just to show that the magic is traveling around. All of these things will help you make the scene feel more rich and more saturated. So the before and after can't be a perfect overlap since I cropped. So let me save. I don't know what's saved. Oh, okay. So before, so you had this dark background, but you had this direct light on her. If it was moonlight, it'd be very, very different light environment. But the way you lit her up is very daytime values. And so that's what I kind of wanted to pull from this outdoor scene. If it's supposed to be like murky, and then after, so you have more of that continuous theme. If it's supposed to be a very murky moonlit scene. So let me grab this actually, place it in. So this is where it was before, this is where it is now. And I'm going to just crop it in a similar way. if it was supposed to be a moonlit scene, you have a very, 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 see how high her head was in the canvas? You have a very limited range to work from. So you have the darken and the color. The darken needs to be much, much darker than it is right now. And the color helps make it look like moonlight. And then you would just delete away at the two layers to get back what you had as magical glow. I'm not sure why the back of her hair would glow, but like you really wouldn't be able to do a lot. And then the light that you do bring in on her arm would have to be a moonlight. You could make it green. I mean, you could break all these rules and just make it like lit up, but if it was moonlight, you really have a limit. And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing in like this whitish, bluish color. And I'm using it to slowly kind of illuminate anything the moon is touching. So this becomes a very, very different environment if it's lit up by moonlight. So do you see how I interpreted yours as daylight? Because you had skin tones, technically. The pink of the tongue was pink. And so I wanted to keep that daylight going. But of course, we're cropping away all that extra stuff. So we reignited some of that green that you have that continue the motif, because you had just a tiny bit of green at the top of the canvas, almost like ready to get cropped out. But everything else is pink and cool tones. So that accent color has to be switched out. That green and that pink have to be switched out. It has to be pink accent and green everywhere, because you didn't really have a base tone. You just had gray. So you have to pick a standard color for you to carry the theme with. And this theme is about this evil character that baits victims in the forest and eats them like a Venus flytrap. So you're thinking about a lot of green at this point if it's going to be deep in the forest. And that's kind of the point I wanted to make. You can make it more of a murky. See how I'm pushing more toward yellow? Or you can make it more of a cool green. It's really up to you. I always love cool tones. So this is where it was the base tone before. And if you wanted to exaggerate the purple in her skin, you can do that as well. You have enough saturation everywhere else that it won't stick out. But you were so desaturated that the barely saturated purple of her skin was very visible before. Okay, and if you want to make those spider web style spit things, look at how other artists do a master study of how other splash artists or pros created that web look in a painting. It's actually very, very abstract. You're not actually drawing every part of the spider web. You're creating a hinting of its presence, because to draw a line in the middle of your canvas is like slashing your canvas with a knife. It just draws the attention of the viewer. That's why you taper the lines as they reach the edge of the canvas. Okay, so before, after, small changes, but letting the background be brighter for some reason makes the painting feel more open and adds that realism. And one thing I would do, because I can't lower the head anymore, is add a dramatic darkness to the top of the canvas. What that will do is let me brighten her eyes more and make her look a little bit more predatory, but delete a little bit around her head. So because I can't lower her in the canvas because of the way you cropped it, I can use how high you put her in the canvas to show that she's towering over the viewer. But still, the background behind her is brighter. Do you see that trick of darkening the upper half of the canvas? So this, coupled with extra plants in the background, so you have a couple of extra plants here, the ones that kind of open like that, and they have the same color scheme as her, and maybe they have some teeth, and some extra twigs and branches. Oops. The gardener doesn't know how to draw twigs. I can believe it. And more twisting vines, twisting in between. All of that will help fill in the canvas a little bit more. All right. So this is how you raise the caliber of the illustration, by painting on a level that is more aware of the environment than before. It's not just an afterthought. The environment value and the environment color is all relative to what you're doing with the character. And it makes the piece look more professional because you are considering the presence of the light environment, the light that's bouncing around behind the character, even if it's a dark and dingy. Like for instance, I'm going to darken the whole scene, right? So I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to darken the whole scene. But I'm only going to delete away what I definitely need, which is the parts that the light can see. Okay, so deleting it right back in. Her body is still lighter than the background. So if you did want it to stay a very dark and murky scene, so this is much darker, right? Her body's still lighter than the background. In fact, we can even spot delete right behind her waistline, and that'll bring her out even more. You can still keep it dark. If you're standing outside at night and the moon is out and you're wearing a cloak, you're going to be darker, the darkest object there, because you're more of a closed object, and the moonlit environment around you is a brighter object because there's more bouncing light around. All the other objects are exposed, and you are standing against the moonlight, not just directly behind you, the moon, no, even if it's off to the side, the environment's still behind you. All that bouncing light is behind you. So a lot of people, don't like silhouettes. Oh, that's not really what I'm going for. No, a silhouette has a spectrum. I'm not talking about full silhouette. I'm talking about splash art silhouettes, which aren't full silhouettes. We're not completely blacking out the character in some kind of shadow puppet. We still have the character very much visible. In fact, the character is more interesting because their environment is real. Right? So you can keep the background dark. Go ahead, darken it as much as you want to. But you have to remember that the object still has to be darker than the background. It just works. It makes more sense this way. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I did not have time for the other one. But if you guys want to participate, there is a community challenge. And all my patrons are allowed to participate in the community challenge and hand in that challenge as homework for April and May. And at the end of April, this community challenge is due. And what will happen is I will reward the winner. All the information is right here. I'll reward the winner, and I will have them sit with me in the community challenge. So right here, right now, they would be with me critiquing other people's art just like I did today. And it'll be really fun because community challenges are very different from regular critique hours. They have more of an excitement to them because everyone's drawing the same thing, and seeing everybody draw the same thing and post for the same stuff, it just adds that bit of motivation that you might not have drawing on your own, doing your own illustration. And at the very end, even if you don't win, you have a whole illustration to call your own, to add to your portfolio, that is critiqued by me, that you can go back and review. And if you do win, it's not about who drew the best drawing. It's about who gave in the most effort. And one of the challenge rewards is 2 sessions one-on-one with me. I talk about your art. I talk about what to do to get your art to the next level, how to improve, and all the things that you're struggling with, you can ask during our call, and we can go through all of your curriculum and all of the ways you can improve your work and see more completion in your work, and what study to focus on, and what group of studies, and what your biggest fundamental issue is. We cover all of that together. So it's not about who drew the best drawing, okay? Hey, Istebrak, this is my illustration. Thank you for critiquing. I do have a question for nighttime values. I wanted the scene to feel like night. How do I achieve that? So I covered that earlier. I don't know if you missed that, FGW. Did you see my answer? I'm not sure when they asked this question. Did they ask this question before I covered the nighttime value? So in order to make it nighttime value, it's very, very easy. You just have to cool, okay, you saw it? All right. You just have to cool down all of the colors. So all of the colors have to go through a blue, and all of the highlights have to be bluish. So if she's purple, you're gonna have to, sacrifice a little bit of that purple towards the blue to make it look like nighttime. And then the moonlight is, you have to decide where that extra light source is coming from. So when it's nighttime and you're holding a candle out, the nighttime is going to make that candle feel very, very bright, even though it's a tiny little light. So you're going to rely on a lot of mini lights to make it glow, especially, if it's nighttime in a deep forest, maybe some lightning bugs or something like that could really spruce up the lush feeling of a deep jungle. And of course, the magical glow of magic, or wherever we have magic. But yes, the saint-like fingers are really throwing off. You could give her more of like a spellcaster's hand. Take a nice reference of your hand and give her a cool gesture in the hand, and go from there. Thank you guys for coming today. I'll see you guys in the next stream on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye, guys.